interesting step. That all of these are just different ways of sharing in the one. But since all of these things bring about a wholesomeness, a perfecting, therefore it's also good, and must show itself as a higher degree of goodness as you proceed through each one of these categories. Well, then it looks like the one and the good are the same or identical. Huh. Well, that's nice to know, but what is it in its, what is the nature of the one in itself? Okay, let's shift gears for a moment. All right. Let's go into the realm of religion. In order to be, in that sense, religious, a person might then reflect, well, after all, what is the nature of God? I don't know whether you can do that. You might ask, what, after all, is the way in which a person can relate to God? Oh, certain kinds of beliefs, certain kinds of behavior, certain kinds of behavior, certain kinds of sacrifices, certain kinds of activities which are said to be significant, sacraments, beneficial actions. But you see, behind all of this must be an image of some God, which then is related to in these ways. So the person who's religious, who wants to grasp the nature of the God that they believe in, is required to end up doing something, believing, having their behavior modified, enter into sacrifices, enter into relationships with their other members who share the similar beliefs. That's different than this person, isn't it? Because this person, after all, what is the nature of the one? Whatever they encounter, they're seeing nothing other than a manifestation or a shadow of the one in itself. Therefore, this leads to more advanced states of mind. That's what we called them a moment ago, didn't we? And therefore, this is a spiritual development or a philosophical dimension that is not in the same class as this dimension. Therefore, this is a philosophical training that then brings someone closer to this model, this basic triune model. Now look here. Let's put one more thing in here. And this is an interesting aspect of Plato. Now we're going to go for the model and the archetype. Same triangle, model, the person who seeks to act upon it, and the relationship they may get with another. Right? We can use this as friends might, but most often among lovers. Right? That this person then has an idea of the way in which he thinks he should be. To that degree, he wants to enter into a relationship where he can find those same qualities in the beloved. So in that way, he's going to encourage a kind of relationship and development with that person that can make that more apparent, surface it. To the degree, therefore, that he's clear about the model in his own mind, to that degree, then, he can share that model with the other, so that they then are not just being, as it were, fated, bound by that imposition, but to the degree that the other party can enter into that with freedom, then what they are then doing, to the degree then that they focus on the model and purify that model and learn more about that model, and then exhibit that kind of way of being in themselves, then the distance between these three diminishes. It diminishes. That's what you do with a model in the Greek world. Now, that's the model in the Phaedrus. That's the model in the Symposium. Different kind of model, by the way, because the model in the Symposium is the teacher as Diotima. This model, or the archetype in the Phaedrus, are the different gods. Each of the gods has a distinct state of mind, way of being, and therefore these people who engage in this kind of matching, as it were, then must be clear. The clearer they are about the particular model, they may go for Zeus, Apollo, etc. To that very degree, then, they are becoming like that model. They're becoming like that model. They're becoming, oh, there, look, 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 this is what we got. They are becoming like, both of them now, are being a demiurgos in fashioning themselves to that model, and then making the relationship they have mirror that. So both are doing it together, and therefore to that degree they're bringing that into existence, right, into their way of being. Therefore, this is bringing the divine into manifestation. All under the aspect of they think it's for their ultimate good. Hey, Providence. Reflecting upon oneself. So that's the archetypal model in a few words. There's much more to be said about it, but I want to go now to the other part of this. Proclus also mentions geometry. Now there's a kinship between geometry and astronomy. Now, just as we are understanding arithmetic in this very high sense, purely speculative sense, same thing is going to be true for these two things. To the degree that one is doing that, one is then turning upon, remember what we said, the see alike turning upon oneself. And therefore this very process turns the soul around to real being. Now that real being is this model in the mind of God. That's sometimes called the forms. That's sometimes called the idea of the good. Well, this activity, therefore, turns one around towards real being, which then it must be contemplated. Now, what does that mean? You see, these two people we were talking about, right, they can then reflect on their daily lives, they can reflect upon their model, they can engage in ways in which they can compare what they're doing. They're actively participating in this kind of growth. Remember what we called it? Growth, nourishment, reweaving. They're reweaving, refashioning themselves in this process. That's a contemplation. That's a contemplation, to contemplate, right? To consider, to reflect on, to do. And finally, to merge with the model itself, real being. The problems one engages and one encounters, the problems one engages in, the problem one encounters in doing this